What if the highest version of yourself arrives not with noise, but with stillness? What if true change whispers rather than shout, not revealed in declarations, but in unseen discipline, not shared but lived? In a world entranced by noise, updates, and applause, few know the quiet work of becoming. Many want to appear in motion. Few wish to simply move. There is no virtue in broadcasting your path before your feet have even pressed it. The great ones, they walk silently. They don't pause midway for praise. They continue. Have you ever vanished into your own evolution so deeply you forgot to tell a soul? Have you ever pursued a goal not to be seen but to see yourself rise? We've been misled to believe that exposure means momentum, that a shared dream is a closer dream, that validation births transformation. But the truth? Most talk themselves out of becoming by speaking too soon. They expose their seed to the elements before its roots hold the soil. And in that exposure, it becomes weak, vulnerable to the opinions, distractions, and energies of others. But you can choose differently. This message is not for the performer, but the practitioner. For the soul who seeks not applause, but alignment. Not the illusion of movement, but the substance of mastery. Behind closed doors, when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, this is where greatness takes its first breath. Let this be your permission to go inward, not to escape, but to equip. Silence, when intentional, is not the absence of power, but the channel of it. It is the calm before the emergence. And those who build without needing eyes upon them, they become potent. They become undeniable. Let them scroll. Let them share. You go within. Build the foundation. Lay the brick. Align with your becoming. For the one who emerges from the silence does not come with potential. He comes with power. If you have been dismissed, overlooked, doubted, good. Your strength is still gathering. Your roots are still descending. And soon, your presence will be impossible to miss. So stop revealing and start refining. Stop explaining and begin embodying. Stop posting and keep progressing. You must remember, the process of becoming must be protected. A fragile flame must be sheltered from the wind. Share it too soon, and you scatter it. The dopamine rush of announcement often steals that, because you know it leads somewhere sacred. This isn't about proving anymore. It's about protecting your frequency, your momentum, your evolution. And you protect it not with walls, but with standard. Not with noise, but with stillness. You protect it by letting your life be your loudest statement. You protect it by choosing mastery over attention, because you've remembered something eternal. You are the temple. You are the mirror. You are the force. And no one has to know you're rising. No one has to understand your pace. No one has to clap for your choices. Because you aren't building for them. You're building for the version of you who's watching. And when that version looks back at this season, it won't be the noise that mattered. It will be the stillness you mastered, the consistency you embodied, the sovereignty you reclaimed. So keep going, keep building, keep walking quietly. Because soon, the world won't ask what you're doing. They'll ask how you became who you are, and all you'll have to do is smile, because by then, the answer will be obvious. You built it in silence, and now the silence speaks. There comes a point in the evolution of self where you stop waiting for the shift to happen and start living as though it already has. This is the realm beyond words, beyond goals, beyond future tense declaration. It is the sacred now, the space in which you no longer dream of change, because you've already become the vessel that change must obey. This is not about building potential. This is about embodying inevitability. There is a frequency you carry when you no longer hope to become but decide to be. When the identity you once aspired to is the one you now express without trying. Not as an effort, not as an act, but as a fact. This moment is subtle, invisible to most, but internally, it feels like a tectonic shift. You stop saying, one day, you start living like it's already done. You begin to inhabit your vision, not as something you're chasing, but as a state you are mastering. Your energy, your posture, your breath all begin to align with the reality you've already claimed. And this isn't delusion. It's design. You're no longer reacting to life. You are instructing it. You are impressing the unseen with the assumption of completion. What changes? Everything. You stop rehearsing success and begin revealing it. You no longer plan from doubt. You move from knowing. You don't make decisions to become worthy. You make decisions because you already are. This energy doesn't speak loudly. It doesn't convince. It doesn't hustle. It holds a calm authority, the kind that doesn't ask for permission because it already owns the room. And this ownership doesn't come from entitlement. It comes from alignment. When you carry the consciousness of completion, people treat you different. Not because you said anything, but because you no longer leak uncertainty. Your presence tells the story. Your silence becomes confirmation. That's what makes this phase so potent and so misunderstood. Because it doesn't come with announcement. It doesn't require witness. There's nothing to prove when there's nothing left to question. Others may not recognize it yet. They may still treat you like the person you used to be, but you don't engage. Not out of pride, but out of clarity. You don't need to argue with outdated reflections. You've become too solid to bend to old mirrors. The test is whether you can stay in that energy without needing external evidence to sustain it. Can you walk like the version of you that already holds the vision, even when the world hasn't caught up? Can you keep your frequency high, your mind focused, and your actions aligned, even when the results are still invisible? Most people can't. They revert, they doubt, they shrink, but not you. You've realized that the world will catch up to the identity you hold, not the other way around. You've stopped explaining your moves because your energy has begun doing the talk. And this isn't arrogance. This is ascension. You've moved beyond needing to be seen, because now you see yourself. And that gaze, that internal acknowledgement is more powerful than any applause. It's the power of walking through the world with the quiet conviction of someone who already is what they used to only want. This is embodiment, and embodiment doesn't just change what you do. It changes how the universe responds to you. You become magnetic, not because you chase, but because you attract. Not because you beg, but because you belong. The people, the opportunities, the moments begin to arrive, not to complete you, but to mirror you. You've made space. You've made peace. And now, all that matches your vibration must find you. You didn't beg for it. You became it. And here's what most don't understand. Embodiment isn't a performance. It's not about pretending you're further than you are. It's about aligning your identity with the version of you that no longer waits. You stop outsourcing certainty to outcomes. You stop waiting for success to feel successful. You stop needing proof to feel powerful. Because you've realized something most never will, that the delay was never in the dream. The delay was in the doubt. And once the doubt dissolves, the timeline collapses. You begin to compress time not by rushing, but by resonating. You live at the level of your future, and time bends to your state. This is mastery. You become unmoved by the noise, untouched by delay, unshaken by setback. Because those things don't define you anymore. They're just shadows passing through a space you've already illuminated. You've stopped negotiating with fear. You've stopped asking for signs. You've stopped waiting for momentum. You've become the sign. You've become the momentum. And even in moments of uncertainty, you return to your state, not your circumstance. You realign with the energy that created the vision, not the emotions that come with its delay. You've stopped riding the waves. You've become the ocean, and now your path feels inevitable. Not because it's easy, but because it's anchored. You've dropped the weight of external permission. You've remembered that it was never about the outcome. It was about the owner. This is the moment where you no longer try to be ready. You realize that readiness is a state, not a milestone. And you claim it, not someday, but now. So you wake up and choose it. Again, again, and again, and again, not to force anything, but to align with everything. You don't need to post about it. You don't need to explain it. You don't even need to understand how it will unfold. You just hold the identity. You just walk in the truth. You just live the answer. Because the life you want isn't waiting for you to say the right thing. It's waiting for you to become the one who no longer has to. Live from it, move with it, trust in it. And when the world finally catches up, you'll already be standing there, unmoved, unshaken, undeniable. Not because you waited, but because you decided. And that decision, repeated in silence, in discipline, in presence, is the foundation of everything you were meant to build. You don't hope for alignment anymore. You are alignment, and that's why everything changes. Starting now, there is a place you arrive at, not through noise, but through depth. Not through external effort, but through inner mastery. It is the quiet ground where the foundation of everything you've ever desired is laid, not brick by brick, but belief by belief. This is where you stop chasing life and begin creating it from the root. In this space, the final layer of noise falls away. You no longer entertain the pull to declare, to prove, to convince. The identity is set. The frequency is clear, and what once felt like effort now feels like inevitability. Here, your work is not to become louder, but to become more precise. Not to convince others, but to confirm within. You've come to understand that power doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives with alignment, and the highest form of alignment is inner stillness paired with exact intention. The outside world remains noisy. It always will, but you no longer react, because you've placed your roots deeper than the winds can touch. You've become unmoved, not because you're rigid, but because you're rooted. And in that rootedness, you become a force. You no longer hope to be seen. You no longer seek acknowledgement. You've stopped waiting for the mirror of others to reflect your work, because you've now become the source of your own validation. This shift is profound. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask for company. It simply is. You carry yourself differently now. Not in arrogance, but in clarity. You speak less, but your presence says more. You do less, but your impact goes further. You've become concentrated. Your energy is no longer scattered. Your vision is no longer diluted. Your essence is no longer available to anything that contradicts your becoming. This is what true power feels like. Not the performance of strength, but the peace of it. Not the flash of effort, but the flow of embodiment. You no longer need to update anyone on your growth. Not because you're hiding, but because you're honoring. Honoring the silence that has carried you. Honoring the identity that has taken root. Honoring the frequency that has now become your home. People may ask where you went. Let them. People may wonder why you've changed. Let them. This isn't for them. This is for the version of you that stayed consistent when it was hard. For the version that chose restraint when it wanted recognition. For the version that built when it would have been easier to broadcast. And now you know this quiet ground you've laid is not empty. It is sacred. From here, everything you desire will flow. Not because you reached for it, but because you became the kind of person who attracts it without needing to chase. You've stopped matching the world. You've started commanding it. But not through force. Through frequency. This is the evolution they don't show. The becoming that cannot be captured. The power that cannot be posted. You start living from a state beyond explanation. You begin moving in ways that feel guided, not forced. You trust silence more than opinions. You prefer solitude over scattered energy. You understand that the most important conversations are no longer with others. They're with your own self-concept. And that self-concept, it's unshakable now. You no longer question your path. You no longer dilute your vision. You don't pause to explain what you know to be true, because truth doesn't ask for support. It asks for embodiment. And you have answered. Every day you chose discipline over comfort. You voted for this identity. Every day you kept showing up when no one noticed. You cast another stone in the foundation. Every decision made in solitude was a brick in this sacred ground. And now you don't have to tell the world who you are becoming. You simply become. This kind of quiet authority can't be replicated. It can't be copied, it can't be stolen, because it was earned in silence, crafted in repetition, etched into your energy through practice, presence, and unwavering standards. Now, your reality begins to shift, not because you forced it, but because you've matched it. You have become the frequency of the life you envision. You are no longer walking toward it. You are standing in it, and with each breath, each step, each quiet decision, you affirm, I am already the one. Not becoming, being. So hold this ground, guard it, protect it like the sacred soil it is. Do not explain it, do not shrink it, do not decorate it for others to feel more comfortable. Let them feel the shift, let them witness the refinement. Let them wonder how you changed without telling a soul, because what you've built now speaks louder than any declaration ever could. This is the level where words retire, where actions are sovereign, where presence precedes every introduction. Let this be the season you no longer narrate your becoming. Let it be the season you let your becoming narrate you. You don't owe the world your process. You owe your purpose your full devotion. And when you stand in that, silent and solid, everything you've ever desired starts arriving in rhythm. Not as a surprise, but as a response to the stillness, to the discipline, to the integrity of someone who built the foundation the world never saw. Now they'll feel it. Now they'll see it, not because you showed them, but because you are it. There is a rare moment in the quiet evolution of self, when the question shifts from what do I need to do, to who have I already become? It is the soft arrival of embodiment, the internal realization that you no longer seek change, because you are now living as the change. And this revelation doesn't come through noise or validation. It comes through evidence. Quiet, consistent, undeniable evidence. By now, you've walked long enough in silence that your steps have formed a new rhythm, a new architecture of behavior, belief, and identity. The person you used to strive to become is now present in the way you move, speak, choose, and respond. You no longer need to talk about growth because your decisions reflect it. You no longer crave alignment because you've built it into your habits. And yet, this stage is not a finish line. It's a beginning, a powerful one. Because once you are no longer trying to become, you are free to create from being. Your work no longer comes from proving your worth. It emerges from knowing your value. Your boundaries no longer come from pain. They arise from clarity. Your discipline no longer requires force. It flows from identity. This is the hidden transformation most will miss. Not because they can't reach it, but because they never learned to stay through the silence long enough to see what was being revealed. There's a misconception that transformation should be dramatic, loud, full of fanfare. But the most real changes happen subtly. They unfold in quiet mornings, in skipped distractions, in unspoken choices made again and again, with no one watching. This is where your identity solidifies. In the repetition. In the small sacred agreements you keep with yourself when no one is keeping score. You used to look outside for mirrors. Now you look within for direction. You used to chase inspiration. Now you are led by intention. There is a beautiful inevitability that arises when you've stopped negotiating with old versions of yourself. Your energy becomes clear, cleaned out, focused. And the world responds, not to your words, but to your feel. People begin to notice. Not because you told them something changed, but because your silence feels different now. It doesn't carry withdrawal. It carries depth. It carries certainty. You no longer avoid people or spaces to protect your dream. You simply don't resonate with anything that doesn't reflect. And this is the beauty of embodiment. It is not loud, but it is potent, not explained, but felt. You carry a presence that speaks before you do. You hold a posture that requires no justification. You walk in a room, and even if they don't know what's different, they feel something unshakable. But none of this happened by chance. It came through refinement. You sat in the fire of discomfort long enough to no longer fear it. You surrendered your attachment to old identities until they no longer held weight. You stopped needing outcomes to validate your effort. Now, effort has become your language. Discipline has become your default. And here's the hidden truth. When you live in quiet alignment, life begins to echo you. Not because you demanded it, but because you became impossible to ignore. You've become the living embodiment of a message the world didn't know it needed. And without trying to teach, you inspire. Without needing to prove, you elevate. Without seeking attention, you become a magnet. Because the frequency of truth is rare, and in a world full of noise, quiet truth becomes unmistakable. You are no longer in the game of identity construction. You are in the season of identity expression. Everything you've built inside is now available to the world, not as a performance, but as a reflection. And yes, people will notice. They'll ask what happened. They want the shortcut. They'll seek the formula. But there is no formula. There is only the fire you chose to walk through. The silence you chose to trust, the standards you chose to uphold. And while others were curating a persona, you were cultivating a presence. This is not a better than energy. It's a beyond energy. Beyond the need to explain, beyond the fear of rejection, beyond the compulsion to constantly edit yourself for acceptance. You are not finished. But you are full of evidence, full of alignment, full of power, the kind of power that doesn't surge. It hums through your habits. It hums through your posture. It hums through the way you now trust timing instead of forcing results. You've entered the rare territory of calm certainty, where vision doesn't need velocity, where growth doesn't need an audience, where success is not about accumulation, but about resonance. You are no longer seduced by the optics of momentum. You're too rooted in the truth of real, sustainable evolution. You know now that building quietly is not just strategy. It's sacred, and as your foundation deepens, you realize you don't need to share your process. Your presence is the evidence. Your life is the broadcast. Your results are the answer. So let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. You're not avoiding them. You're just focused. Because you understand what most never will. The more complete your embodiment, the less explanation is required. This is where you are now. Past the need for applause, past the doubt of delay, past the noise of comparison. You've arrived in the frequency of truth, and it fits. It holds you. It elevates you. Now, stay there, not to hide, but to deepen, not to withhold, but to become undeniable. Because the real work is not to impress. It's to embody, and that work, when done fully, never has to be spoken. The world will notice. The right ones will align. And the path ahead will not just open. It will respond. You've built in silence. You've risen in truth. Now let the embodiment speak, because it always will. Hunger that fuels action. The early applause deceives the mind into thinking it has already arrived. You must delay your reward. Delay your recognition. Delay the dopamine. Only then will the work have room to deepen. You must build without an audience. You must grow without performance. Because when no one is watching, the only one you answer to is your future self. That is sacred. That is real. Let every step be its own reward. Let each rep, each early morning, each choice in silence be its own confirmation. In time, your life will echo what your mouth never had to say. Comparison is the enemy not just of joy, but of purpose. You open your feed and see a life polished and lit. And you measure your roar behind the scenes against their highlight. You forget the cost of their chapter 20 and diminish the sacredness of your chapter 2. This is delusion. You do not see the late nights, the doubt, the debt, the pain behind their perfect post. And yet you let that filtered image rewrite your story. You chase what isn't yours. You lose yourself in another's script. Your path is not meant to match theirs. Your mission is not meant to be understood by those not sent to walk with you. So instead of looking sideways, measure backwards. Not am I where they are, but am I further than I was? Your vision doesn't need witnesses. It needs you. And when your clarity is higher than your craving for recognition, you become powerful beyond measure. So protect your mind, guard your feed, elevate your inputs, because what you consume, you become. And if you constantly ingest comparison, you will forget who you are. You will forget what you came to build. Privacy is power. Silence is strategy. Boundaries are sacred. Stop opening your vault to people who don't value gold. Stop explaining your dream to those who are blind to vision. Let your work speak. Let your energy speak. Let the life you craft whisper the truth louder than your voice ever could. You do not owe your growth to anyone's gaze. You owe your alignment to yourself. Disappear if you must. Let them wonder, let them doubt, and then emerge when the masterpiece is ready. You do not build to be seen. You build because you must. Because your spirit demands it. Because the fire won't let you sleep. And when you finally step into the room as that elevated, uncommon, undeniable self, you won't need to announce. Your energy will arrive before you. Your presence will precede you. And those who once overlooked you will see not a version of who you were, but the undeniable evidence of who you become. You don't chase attention. You attract resonance. You don't scream transformation. You radiate it. That is your power. That is your path. That is your becoming. Quietly, relentlessly, truthfully. Let the silence speak. There comes a moment in every soul's journey where the need to be seen dissolves, and all that remains is the sacred dialogue between you and your becoming. This is not a stage. This is not a performance. This is the furnace where the old self burns away, and the new form, unshaped by public gaze, begins to emerge. To become unrecognizable to the world, you must first become unfamiliar to yourself. Not in the sense of loss, but in the profound sense of evolution. You do not change because you are broken. You change because you have glimpsed a version of yourself, more aligned with truth, more attuned to purpose, and you can no longer ignore the call. This transformation does not ask for announcement. It asks for devotion. You are not preparing to impress. You are preparing to inhabit the highest expression of your being, and that cannot be rushed. It cannot be hurried into view. It must be nurtured in solitude. To the world, it looks like you're silent. To you, it feels like fire. While others speak of ambition, you become it. While others declare identity, you embody it. You practice not for validation, but for embodiment. And this distinction makes all the difference. This phase of growth is sacred precisely because no one claps for it. No one affirms it. There are no visible milestones, no trophies, no confirmation that what you are doing matters. And yet, something inside you knows. There is a resonance, an internal click, a shift in the air around your choices. You start to feel differently about your time. You stop negotiating with distraction. You begin to protect your mornings like sacred rituals, your evenings like sacred endings. You are not simply chasing goals. You are nurturing a frequency so high, so aligned that anything not resonant with it begins to fade. Conversations, habits, even aspects of your old self no longer survive in this new atmosphere. And this shift is invisible to most. That is by design, because what you are creating now is not content, but character. Not visibility, but vision. You are laying down the bricks of integrity, of self-trust, of spiritual gravity. And those bricks are not flashy. They are quiet, heavy, real. There's a power in knowing that the world cannot track your progress. that they can only sense it when the structure reveals itself. Until then, you build. You build not with desperation, but with certainty. Not with performance, but with precision. You do not share this process because it is not meant to be shared. It is meant to be held. It is meant to be felt. Every morning you rise early. Every night you choose discipline over distraction. You are not just improving. You are aligning. You are tuning your consciousness to a state where manifestation becomes inevitable. This is the part of the journey most avoided. Because it is lonely, it is long, it offers no immediate reward, but what it offers instead is sovereignty. You stop seeking confirmation from the outside. You stop outsourcing your belief to others. You become the one who believes in your vision the most, because you are the one carrying it. Every hour spent in quiet execution, every small habit done with great presence, is a prayer to your future. And that prayer is answered not in the spotlight, but in the moment when your new identity becomes so second nature, you forget who you used to be. No one applauds the caterpillar. No one watches it retreat into the cocoon. But when the wings appear, when the emergence is undeniable, everyone sees the flight. You must learn to honor the cocoon. You must learn to honor the unseen season, the phases where your timeline feels delayed, where your effort feels unrewarded, where your fire burns in private, because that is where the real becoming happens. Not when you are visible, but when you are invincible. When the world's opinions, schedules, trends no longer dictate your direction. When your compass points only to your own inner truth. This is why silence is not passive. It is active. It is filled with choosing. Choosing again and again to act in alignment with the future you. Choosing presence over popularity. Choosing stillness over stimulation. Choosing clarity over chaos. And then something miraculous happens. Your life begins to reflect your inner mastery. Opportunities begin to arrive that you didn't chase. People feel something different in your presence, even if they can't name it. You become magnetic, not because you changed your appearance or improved your pitch, but because your energy is unmistakably clear. This is what they don't tell you about transformation. It is not always loud, but it is always precise. It is not always praised, but it is always powerful. And the ones who walk this path, the quiet ones, the focused ones, the disciplined ones, they are the ones the world ends up watching. So if no one is watching you now, keep going. If no one is clapping, keep practicing. If no one sees the value of what you're becoming, trust that one day they will. Because you are not building for applause. You are building for alignment. You are not creating for visibility. You are crafting something that will make you unmissable when it is time. The silence you carry now is not empty. It is full of seeds. And soon, the garden will bloom in full view. But until then, remain consistent, remain sacred. Remain grounded in the knowing that what you are creating cannot be rushed, cannot be doubted, and cannot be stopped. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let them forget. You are not their performance. You are your own promise. And when you arrive, fully, freely, powerfully, you will not need to say a word. The life you built will say everything. There comes a sacred threshold in the journey of becoming where even the need to be understood dissolves. Not out of resentment, but reverence. You no longer crave to be seen or heard because you have finally begun to see and hear yourself. This is the realm where your inner world becomes more real than the one outside. And it is here, in this silence, that the most profound shifts occur. The final stages of transformation are rarely witnessed. Not because they're unworthy, but because they're holy. These moments of calibration, of subtle energetic refinement, are not for the crowd. They're for the creator within you. At this stage, you are no longer sculpting a public image. You are carving out essence, presence, alignment. This is not the time for posts or applause. This is the time for precision, for knowing that every breath, every decision, every thought is casting a vote for the world you are shaping. The world has taught us to seek proof before belief, but the truth is, your belief becomes the proof. The outer reflects the inner, always. So when you choose to move without noise, without display, you are not hiding. You are honing. You are sharpening the blade of your consciousness. You are removing the distractions that distort your field. Let others measure success by followers, by views, by validation. You measure by peace, by inner stillness, by how well your outer world now bends to the unseen assumptions you carry. You see, there is a stage in your evolution where you no longer speak your identity. You embody it so fully, it cannot be denied. You don't have to say, "I am becoming." Your presence announces what your lips no longer need to utter. The frequency of your life becomes the proof of your intention. And yet, it will look like nothing to most. You'll wake up earlier, choose differently, say no without guilt, create with no announcement, detach from the timelines others are on, and in that solitude, you'll feel an unfamiliar yet undeniable energy, clarity. Clarity is not just knowing what you want, it's releasing everything that no longer matches who you are becoming. It's saying goodbye to what feels comfortable but no longer aligns. It's watching your life simplify, not because you have less, but because everything in it is now deliberate. You will feel the temptation to share, to explain, to show people that something is happening. But this part of your journey demands a deeper discipline, sacred restraint, because the premature exposure of becoming invites interference, doubt, distortion, and you have worked too hard to let someone else's misunderstanding disrupt your internal calibration. The identity you are crafting is not up for debate. It is not a consensus. It is a covenant between you and your vision. No one else is required to understand it. And in fact, most won't. They'll remember the version of you that fit their comfort. They'll miss the signs of your ascent because you no longer perform for their approval. Let them question. Let them speculate. Let them guess. You are not here to be legible. You are here to be legendary, and legends are rarely recognized while they're being written. This part of the journey requires a new posture. You no longer hustle from lack. You create from surplus. You no longer speak your word. You move like it's unquestionable. You no longer chase timelines. You anchor into divine timing. Your pace is not slow, it is sovereign. You are not behind, you are in alignment. And from this alignment, power begins to gather. Not the kind that shouts, the kind that radiates. You walk into rooms differently. People feel something in your energy they can't explain. They ask, what changed? And all you can do is smile, because the truth is, everything. But how do you explain the silence? How do you explain the discipline no one saw? The tears cried behind closed doors? The hours spent reprogramming your beliefs? The solitude you chose, again and again, until the noise within finally surrendered to peace? You don't. You let the life speak. You let the results tell the story. You let the presence you carry become your message. This is the quiet culmination of intention. The invisible work becoming visible without effort. The becoming so complete, even your shadow no longer resembles who you used to be. Do not interrupt this emergence with performance. Do not dim it with explanation. Stay steady, stay clear, stay faithful to the version of you that is still integrating. There is nothing more powerful than a soul who no longer performs, who no longer rushes, who no longer explains, because that soul has remembered its source. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be light, to illuminate a path by walking it, to embody a standard so clearly that it gives others permission to rise. And you cannot do that if you're constantly justifying your silence to the world. Sacred things grow in secret. Miracles happen in the quiet. Identity is not declared. It is lived. So when they ask where you went, say this: I went within. When they ask why you disappeared, say this: I was becoming. And when they ask how you changed so much, say nothing. Let your life answer. Let your energy speak. Let your silence resound with a presence too loud to ignore. This is not the end of your journey. This is not the beginning either. This is the becoming. It is invisible. It is undeniable. It is yours. There's a stage in the journey that no one warns you about. Not because it isn't real, but because it's too personal, too internal, too sacred to be explained. It's the space where your transformation has rooted itself so deeply into your identity that words can no longer capture. You don't speak about what you're becoming anymore. You simply are it. This stage doesn't come with fanfare. It arrives silently, like the dawn. One morning you rise, and something is different. You haven't achieved the goal yet. The world hasn't recognized the change, but you feel it. Not as excitement, as stillness, as knowing. This isn't about the first spark of transformation, and it isn't about the final reveal. This is the middle, the embodied middle, the phase where you're no longer striving to become. You are being it without the need to say a word. And in that being, everything changes. Your habits evolve without effort. Your environment adjusts without resistance. Your relationships shift without conflict. Why? Because your frequency no longer entertains what doesn't match it. Because your identity has solidified to the point where old cycles simply don't survive in your presence. You don't have to fight off the past. It dissolves. You don't have to cut people off. They drift. You don't have to hustle for change. You attract. This is not passive. It's precise. It's not soft. It's sovereign. It's the power that emerges when you no longer leak energy explaining who you are becoming, and instead live in quiet congruence with. And it begins with a deep release. You let go of timeline. You let go of needing to be witnessed. You let go of convincing others to believe in your vision. Because you've realized the only one who needed to believe was you. And now that you do, the shift is irreversible. You don't manifest from desperation anymore. You manifest from embodiment. You don't act from fear. You act from foundation. That foundation wasn't built in public. It was forged in the silence. One decision, one repetition, one small act of alignment at a time. You became the person who wakes up early not because it's trendy, but because your body now craves the quiet of the morning. You read not to appear wise, but because your soul is hungry for truth. You move your body not to shape it, but to honor it. The performance is gone. Manyan. The performance is dead. What remains is real. And what's real doesn't have to announce itself. It simply radiates. People will start to feel it. They'll look at you longer. They'll ask what changed. They'll sense a presence they can't define. And you won't need to respond. Because it's not something that can be explained. It's an energy. It's a vibration. It's a coherence between your inner world and outer reality. You've stopped negotiating with yourself. You've stopped choosing based on optics. You've stopped entertaining conversations that dilute your clarity. Now you live in integrity, not just ethically, but energetically. You become a match for the life you once imagined. And here's the secret. You didn't achieve it by chasing. You achieved it by aligning, by releasing the noise, by walking away from false urgency, by treating your inner world like the authority it has always been. Now, when something no longer feels right, you don't need evidence. You trust the feeling. Now, when a new opportunity arrives, you don't rush in. You sit with it, knowing that anything real can wait. You've entered the space where time bends, where manifestations arrive with less effort and more ease. Not because life got easier, but because your frequency got clearer. You stopped entertaining confusion. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding. You stopped trying to bring everyone with you. Now you lead by example. Now you move in silence. Now you speak in outcomes, not promises. Because in this new way of being, you've learned something most never will. That the most powerful version of you isn't the one who says the right thing, posts the right quote, or shares the right milestone. It's the version that chooses alignment in the dark. That practices discipline with no one watching. That doesn't quit when the validation runs dry. That version of you, it's not emerging. It's already here. You feel it every time you choose the long game. You feel it every time you walk away from noise. You feel it every time your peace no longer feels negotiable. So what now? Now you stay. You stay devoted to the work no one claps for. You stay focused when the world tries to distract you with cheap dopamine.